Hello, kids. Welcome back to another episode of the Chichester Chats. It's me, Phil. Lilith is here, of course. And, of course, the man bringing the light back to modern comics. It is Mr. DG Chichester. Hello, sir.
Hello, guys. I like that. It's like the hello, kids. Hey, kids, comics. It's
Exactly.
I always wanted one of those spinner racks, like the old, those. I know people have some of those. Those always seem fun.
I want one of those. If you look, I think they're at least over $100. I'm just like,
Yeah. I think you have to. I mean, to find one in good condition, almost certainly. I think I've seen them a couple of times at like big spread out industrial size flea markets, but they've been in pretty rough shape, and the amount of time to sand it down, repaint it, would be considerable.
yeah,
You
because
should
that's the
just
other
3D print one.
3D print one.
I could 3D print one. You're absolutely right. Yeah,
It
that's
won't
a
be the
that's a
same,
dis,
but it's
it
a
would
nod.
it's something.
You could
It's
put a big
something.
Daredevil head or something on the top of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Like just staring at you, and then totally.
Yeah, because that's the problem. It's like I don't think they don't make new ones anymore, right? So you'd have to buy a
I, I,
used one.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, there may be some place making that kind of retro stuff somewhere, just like they make retro pinball machines and retro this and retro that. But I haven't looked either. But I'm assuming there's really no market for them in if they're in a comic store. I think those guys probably had them, from that retro thing. And I don't think there's no such thing as a corner newsstand anymore where those would really have been so popular. So you're just going to pick it up that way, or some collector, is going to want one. But maybe there's a market. Who knows?
All right. I was gonna say, should we jump into the Nick Fury stuff first, or should we
You
talk
you
about
you
current
go
events first?
go you're. I'm here to like pretend I know what I'm talking about, and you guys, which very rarely is the case, and so I'm happy to follow your guys' lead. I'm only on half a cup of coffee so far, so if better if you pull me out, however makes sense for you.
Okay. Well. All right. Well, let's do some new stuff first.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, we're going to talk about this more next episode, but I did see more announcements on your Kickstarter. Any details you can give
Yes.
on the Kickstarter?
Sure. Yeah. We've teased this out. If people paid any attention, to it in little bits and pieces. But finally, I think it's time to, stop talking and do. So the book is called Axles Infernal. So Axles like a truck and Infernal like hell. And it's been something I've been working on for a long time. I mean, really, parts of the idea date back, God help me, almost 20 years, but it's over the last several years that in fits and starts, it's kind of actually come to life, and it's a tale of a young woman, Percy Cross, who isn't exactly the most morally upstanding character, as you might imagine, in a book that has hell as its theme. But she gets dragged into working as a trucker for hell, essentially. And it had different hells, not just one, hell with a capital H, but every culture, almost every culture, has its form of an underworld. And these underworlds basically ship parts of themselves to Earth in order to promote belief in them. It's important that people believe in hell as much as anything else, for them at least. So they have a underworld transportation authority that ships these pieces of hell out, and they require humans to do this for them for various reasons, that interoperate. So this is the first issue that we're going to be kickstarting, and all the pieces are kind of coming together right now. Carl Waller is the co-creator and the artist on it, and he's doing really dynamite art. And he's got a guy called Wes Wong. He's just not called Wes Wong. His name is Wes Wong. Who is doing the coloring in this really powerful, almost painterly style. We snagged Pat Brousseau,
Hmm.
Eisner-nominated letterer, well known. He's doing the lettering, and he's having a lot of fun with it. And we hijacked Richard Starkings and Comic Craft, who designed a really, I think, killer logo for us. And so I've been putting together a ton of non-repetitive posts and videos and graphics and little written things to kind of really hammer this, so people will be really sick of me by the time we get to the end of the Kickstarter. But I think it's really important to get the word out, because you really don't know who sees what when you use social media as a platform.
I mean, I'm excited. I mean, this is going to be, a supernatural horror thing where it's like,
Chichester original.
and for the first time,
Yeah.
there's gonna be nobody to rein
Yeah.
him in. There's going to be nobody to say, "Oh, tone it down, Dan, tone it down."
I don't even know if they told him that on Hellraiser. I really like
Hellraiser. No, nobody.
So
No,
if it's anything like that, I'm so down.
No, my favorite, quote from Clive, was in some fanzine thing one time, and it was in reference to a monster that got born because, the gunfire from somebody else, went through the testicles of somebody else and impregnated, a monster with those shards. And he said, yeah, you could always count on Dan to go the extra mile. So there wasn't a lot of
You said
pulling.
that's a quote for your book.
But oddly enough, this book has, and maybe we'll talk more about this, in more detail next month.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll give you guys some background on it, so you could really be up to speed and go down whatever roads you want. See where I went there. But the book is kind of writing itself, oddly enough, and maybe because it's been saturating in my brain for so long, the characters have really kind of taken me in directions that are pacing themselves out. There gets to be some really, I think, horrible moments for Percy and for other characters, as we're kind of introduced to this strange psychedelic experience, that she's in. But some of it is very grounded and not as, not just going to horrific places right away. I tried to learn from lessons, I think, of the past, where when you dive too deep into too grisly, too horrific, and say to people, no, I like this stuff, you will too, without the proper setting up, I think you lose them. So we'll see how it feels, once it kind of comes out. And hopefully this first issue, which is what the funding on the Kickstarter is for, is successful enough that we get to do the other 4 that make up this first storyline. And then it's part of a bigger world, a bigger set of stories. But really, to get this first story line out there is the most important thing to set everything in motion.
I can't wait to read. Again, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I mean, I'm going to pick this up. I can't wait to read this.
Well, thank you guys. Yeah, I think it's really, I've leveraged a lot of friends in the industry, and sent out some preliminary stuff, trying to get pull quotes, and they've gotten back some. I don't think they're just kind of like, yeah, nice job, Dan, pat me on the head. I think that they're giving back some really positive statements. I got back one the other day, from, I'm not going to give it away totally yet, from Joe Illich, the editor and writer. And he was like, basically, this wasn't what I expected at all. and that's a good thing, So, I think that, he found, some really interesting qualities in it, which is what you want.
Yeah, because I think for the Kickstarter episode, and maybe when we talk to Daredevil Black Armor stuff, I think we're going to have to go live, so if people want to tune in and have their own questions.
Oh, sure. Yeah, totally. That'd be fun.
Speaking of Daredevil Black Armor, any updates you can give us on that? That's another one I'm very excited for.
Netho, and I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Finally, I was doing some other interview and I mangled it badly. And then I said, man, I'm talking you up in these interviews. How do you pronounce your name? And he laughed and said, this is the correct one, or close enough. But He's killing it. I mean, on the artwork, you've seen probably little teases of it. But he's just making some phenomenal choices. I'm so glad when I wrote it initially, and I didn't really. I had assumed that what I initially turned in, which was this full plot for all the issues, that the editors were going to say, "Okay, this is good. Turn this into a full script," because my understanding is that's really where a lot of the writing is these days. Is more, page one, panel one. Here's the dialogue already. Panel two, here's the dialogue already. Much more like a movie script, which is fine. I've done it that way as well. That's how I'm doing Axles Infernal per Carl's choice. But they just sent the plot to Netho, and which is the old way of doing things, if you will. And I'm so glad it worked out that way, because he's making a lot of good, surprising choices. I think his action is amazing. The armor, the costume, Daredevil looks incredible. Because he's taking the direction that I put in the plot story, but he's making his own interpretive choices. The stuff that comes back to me is surprising me. So while I had lots of bits of dialogue in the plot, because now I'm seeing it through his very fresh eyes, there's different choices that you make. You're inspired to write something differently or not write something differently. Just as importantly, oh, I don't need to do that. There's a scene in the second issue where Daredevil is on a rooftop with another character from the Marvel universe, and and initially I thought this was going to be a very kind of practical exchange of information, and that's still in there, but the way he sort of framed it out, I just started laughing to myself, and I thought of this whole way to play off Daredevil standing there looking so imposing and grim and Daredevil-ish in his black armor, and this other character kind of giving him a bit of ribbing about it, if you will. So I think it's cracking along great. He's probably about halfway through the pencils on the second issue. The first issue is done art-wise, done script-wise. It's somewhere in coloring and lettering. He's ripping it up with the second issue. I think people are going to really be blown away by what he's doing. And I have a scheme, even though I get nothing, hopefully I get something out of it in terms of the book doing well. But I was saying to somebody else, I'm going to be doing a little social tease of it every day from a month out until the final issue. We've got enough material to kind of like just do a social post a day with some of the art, talking it up, getting people to have looks of, here's stuff up to issue 1. Now we're on to issue 2. Here's stuff, in issue 2, and kind of hopefully just keep the attention out there on it. So it's it's feeling really good.
I mean, the interest is there, and especially just like when you put like the figure like on the script and stuff, people are like, "Where is that the only action figure with that wearing that costume?" And I saw that post the other day. Just
give me 1 second.
Okay. Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Oh, darn. Give me 1 second.
Please stand by. Lilith, I love how cute it is when he was saying about Daredevil and the other character. I'm like, just say Spider-Man.
Nope, I can't hear you.
I'm
gonna come right back. Okay, just technical difficulties. Give me 1 second.
But yeah,
while he's not here, so I don't embarrass him. It's just great to be living in a Chichester Renaissance, isn't it?
I know, Lilith. Again, I read his stuff in the 90s as a teenager. You know how I'm like, I don't think he realizes how excited I am. They like be able to read new Chichester stuff in almost
new
30
years.
Not
just Marvel stuff, but like his independent stuff. Like it's creator owned. around. It's
Yes.
so exciting.
That's what I'm saying. There, he's gonna have nobody telling him what to do on Axles Infernal. But again, new Chichester Daredevil. I'm like, holy shit,
Yeah.
All right, there he is.
Sorry,
Hello.
that was right in the middle of you were making some point about the attention seems to be there, and that's a good thing to hear. So sorry to got caught off there.
No worries.
No, we were just saying how excited we are. I'm just
Yeah,
again.
what a great time it is to be alive, to live in the Chichester Renaissance.
Well, yeah, it it feels it's pretty cool. I mean, you can't tell really, I think, what interest there is in anything because obviously you're seeing what you're seeing. So it's like when people are like, sharing, the posts, or Nethos put up some art, or I put up, those little things with the action figure, and people respond well, and but hopefully that's part of the larger thing. I'm going to Galaxy Con in Austin this weekend, not this weekend. This is the weekend, next weekend, Labor Day weekend. And I'll have some sample pages. I've got some printouts of the two alternate covers, the Mark Bagley cover, which is the main cover, and then Raphael, I can't remember his last name, but he's the I believe he's the God of War artist who's done this 3D rendering of of Daredevil in that armor, which looks incredible, and also the splash page to issue 2, which is inked up, and just to try to get more people aware of it, because when I was in Terrificon over July, even though the word was out, there were still a lot of people who were like, what's this? This is coming out? Grissetti, yes, thank you, Lilith. Yes, Grissetti, yeah. So have you guys seen that image?
Oh yeah.
I'm a big God of War fan, so I was just like, oh,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, crazy. I think I would not be surprised if that actually like inspires some people to 3D print out, the cosplay for that. So one of the social posts I'm going to put out around that, which is the first person I see in a black armor cosplay will get a free full set of Fall from Grace from back in the day. So I've got a full set of those issues in a little like box set. So 319, which is the white cover. Empire State Building is not in there. That's the black cover alternate one. But the first person I see at a convention who
your move, Phil, your move.
Man, you're gonna get a 3D printer now.
Exactly, get going. But it just looks so great in that Raphael Grissetti rendering because it looks so real, right? All of a sudden, I mean, Mark Bagley's cover looks amazing as well, but when you see it with that level of 3D detail, it's like, wow, this could be a real outfit.
I mean, I think isn't that one of the big signs that your books getting to the big time these days, and when you get variant covers and stuff. So
is it? Do they do variants?
I know. I was gonna say, I feel like they do variants for everything.
I don't know.
I mean, Mickey Mouse cover, but yeah.
I mean, it's fun, but I just get the sense I heard from some retailers like, oh my God, another variant cover. Not on this, but I mean, just in general.
Yeah.
That's a difficult thing for them to keep up with everything else going on.
Like I mean, yeah.
And I think that's why they moved to those like incentive covers, kind of basically. Like they have the 1 A, B covers, and then like the incentive covers, 1 in 100, 1 in this. And so
right.
That's kind of how they kind of have appeased the retailers.
What does that mean? Like when you order, like
if you order 100, you get one of whatever cover that is.
And they usually charge like $30 for it.
Right. Okay. So you get the option it's your bonus for being
if you order enough, yeah.
Right, a retailer driving the numbers up. So, yeah, okay. I mean, I don't know if that's any better. It still means they've got to order a bunch.
That one person that wants that variant, they're gonna order it, and they know their volume. At least my guys do.
I was gonna say, and I know at least one retailer, like he'll like strike a deal with a guy with a store down the street. He'll be like, you know what? Instead of ordering 100, I'll order 100. You take 50. I'll take 50.
Yep.
I'll take the cover this time. Next time it rolls around, you get the variant. The incentive cover. Yeah.
Yep. But do you think enough readers even go into a store
Oh yeah.
recognizing that there is a variant? They do, Lilith? Yeah, you
Yeah, I
think
mean,
so?
people read the solicits. Like, it's a really, at least like, people my age, we read the solicits. We plan out our, our budget for the comics for the month and what's going to be on the pull list.
I think,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I mean, they do
That's still a thing
advertise
for sure.
online, Marvel and everyone else, just, oh, hey, these are the variant covers. So,
And then the artists are definitely going to push that out too.
Oh
So,
yeah,
oh,
totally.
like,
Totally.
I
Yeah.
guess who's got a variant? I'm like, well, you have a variant every month, babe. What book? Just tell me what book.
Right, right. Which is a tricky road to go down because I mean, while they weren't variants, that was I think part of the doom of the 90s, in the sense
Yeah.
of then everything became this gimmick, right? There were so
yeah.
many gimmick covers,
Oh, we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I think this is the modern version. This is what the holograms and the foil covers have evolved to, where it's just like,
Sure.
you just have multiple covers for issues. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was, not to go back to the Kickstarter land for a second, but even just planning out that, that project of mine and trying to look at comparatives, I was looking at so many comic Kickstarters and, there's 15, 20 variant covers. And it's like, I don't know. Does that make an appeal? We're going to have one variant cover by Dean Kotz. And, but how do you even keep
I
track
think
of
it
like,
depends on your demographic. Like, if
maybe,
you are trying to like cater to Gen like Z and Alpha, maybe, but like if you're trying to keep it like millennials and a little older, like one variant cover at most. I think that like we're all kind of burnt out on variant covers, so it kind of just
right,
depends. So
right,
you have to find that balance.
right. Most of them seem to be like not safe for work variant covers. Like, here's the
And
soft
that's
core,
the beauty of stretch
you know,
goals.
I guess, here's the soft core cover. Here's the hardcore cover. I
Well,
don't
I
know.
can't talk. I'm a Red Sonja fan, so
Yeah, but I'm actually
even the
reading
main
it.
cover's a little softcore on that. So.
coming for the man who impregnated a character with a bullet.
That was that's medical. That's like, very clinical. It was handled with a lot of class,
Wait a minute, did DJ Chichester just up my medical doctrine?
Using all my healthcare advertising credibility is coming into play. It's
Can we get into Nick Fury? Because I have questions and thoughts.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
give Nick his due.
Yeah.
It kind of didn't work out to like capture that Secret Invasion audience, but maybe that's for the better.
Something would have to satisfy the Secret Invasion audience because I do not personally feel the Secret Invasion experience was what I was looking for.
Yeah, I was so excited. I'm like, it's Sam Jack. Oh, okay. I finally got around to watching it.
Is it just like in the comic event was like it involved the whole Marvel universe, and there were so many. It's like, oh, is this person a Skrull? Is this person a Skrull? And
Right.
and it's like, oh, well, hey, this person didn't die. That was a Skrull years ago. But is it just that the scale was so much smaller in the show?
You're asking my opinion, or
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't. I had not read the Secret Invasion comic, so all I wanted out of it was, Nick Fury action,
being a badass.
right, the Winter Soldier scene, plus, right, where he gets attacked in his SUV, and he's clever and ruthless, and and Samuel L. Jackson in command, and and a little bit of like the intrigue of spycraft, right? That was sort of what I took away from the pitch. It's a tricky storytelling mechanism when you have hidden characters, because you quickly run into like unreliable narrators, right?
Mhm.
Is that character telling the truth? Is that character somebody who could tell the truth? But it can be done. And I don't want to like, say all you had to do was, but if you watch, say, what was going to say, Jack
I was
Bauer,
thinking the Americans from FX. I was expecting
Americans,
yeah.
right? I was thinking like Jack Ryan,
Ooh,
the
yeah.
the John Krasinski show on Amazon. Like I was totally okay with Samuel L. Jackson showing up different, beat down, tired out for some reason, But at a certain point, he's got to become who we want him to be, not just for, that's not fan service. That's kind of like the core of the character. And it just went all over the place, and the choices that were made. I don't know that I didn't feel it was like a smaller story, Phil, because I didn't know the full story.
Yeah.
I just felt it was like a badly paced story,
I just wanted the movie. That's all. I didn't need like a show. I wanted a movie.
Yeah, but maybe that could have been better, right? Because then
that way they're forced to
they
kind
would
of slow
have
it
to.
down and kill their darlings,
Right. That would then it could have easily been a movie, right? Yeah, totally. Like that could have been right there. But I mean, I know what happens in the last two because you can't avoid it if you expose yourself to the internet's radiation. But I didn't even make it to the last two. And I don't think I'll ever go back at this point because it's just like, really? Like when Talos died and you left him there on the road, I was like, that's not sorry, spoiler alert, listeners. You can edit that and move
It's
that.
been a week. I think that's
Spoiler
what the
alert.
It's been
spoiler
more than a
rule is
week.
now.
Yeah, no, right.
Been a
So,
while.
but that just seems so out of character. Like that was
Yeah.
this is you've had a relationship with this leader of this race for 30 years or something, or whatever, and you clearly have trust or whatever with each other. And
you trusted him to be you, yes. Yeah.
right. But the whole thing was botched, right? You sort of, that scene should have played out more in my mind, like the Skrulls, have the edge, and then Fury shows up and really turns the tables, which he does a little bit, but not quite. And then if you had to kill Talos, which I'm not sure you had to, but if you did, you don't leave him in the middle of the road. That's just felt wrong to me. So didn't capture me.
And I mean, is the Achilles heel of like the big cinematic universe? I mean, they called it out, and I don't know if they ever gave it like a good explanation for it. Is it just like, oh, hey, the Skrulls threaten the whole planet. Why aren't you calling Avengers in? Or all these superhumans.
Yeah, or but I mean, you could have had a good conceit for that, right?
Yeah, but I don't think they gave a conceit.
No, they didn't. They gave no conceit. They gave nothing. They wanted to get it
besides maybe ego or something. Yeah, no.
Right. They wanted to get to that end game. No, not that end game, but an end game of oh, look, we're going to do a Super Skrull fight or something, and that was more important than Nick Fury being Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson being Samuel L. Jackson, and doing some really incredibly clever, ruthless stuff, right? And that's if the show is his, that should be the shtick. Like his only shtick isn't creating the Avengers Initiative and then calling in like all these things. He's been this super spy forever. So there could have been reasons set up why we don't want this out there. Why I don't want to involve the Avengers. Like all I needed was one sort of suspicion, like, I'm not sure who is who, so I can't trust the people I trust the most, but I can trust myself, and I can trust 30 years of doing this. And then he has to do it himself, like, or slowly then evolve into who's the other one I can trust, and then that becomes a little Mission Impossible thing. And Bob's your uncle. That could have been a cool show, but now we pin our hopes on Ahsoka, and that's a different universe. So
but at least we still have the comic books.
Yes, you have the character, and like it doesn't, doesn't ruin it. It just was sort of like, oh, I thought finally we're going to get a chance for him to shine, because certainly in the current lineup of things, it does not seem very likely you're going to get another Nick Fury specific show, or one that features Samuel L. Jackson in that way.
I just thought they were going to use it to maybe even back cleanup, where it's just like, oh, hey, we can bring back any character who died. We can, oh, hey, you didn't like something that happened. No, that was a Skrull. That wasn't so-and-so, just.
Sure. But that becomes then an ultimate like disappointment, don't you think, a little bit?
Yes.
In terms of it. I mean, as much as I love Loki and aspects of the Loki show, which which was a lot of fun, and that's chemistry, between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston, and large parts of like suddenly learning about the TVA and all that. But when you saw that drawer full of Infinity Stones, you know, as funny as a bit it is, and it's a very funny bit. It does kind of like undercut the importance of the Infinity Stones and the importance of that thing. You know, so funny choice. This is a great gag. The audience will laugh with us. Um, that choice was made, but that supplants well all the investment I put in this other stuff and all the investment I put in Black Widow dying and you know and anything else. Does anything matter?
I mean, is that just like a clumsy attempt at them trying to up the ante every time where it's like, oh, the Infinity Stones are powerful, but the TVA just keeps them in a drawer, so they must be how powerful or
Maybe, but you have to then really connect with the audience in the right way that you're upping the ante truly matters. You know, Quantumania, you know, again, my opinion, a lot of things to enjoy in it. You know, I thought there's some really good stuff and all the performances and so forth. But if you're trying to set up Kang as this new next level big bad, right? Okay, and a lot of the movie does that, right? Jonathan Majors, whatever his issues are, if he has issues, then they need to be addressed. But just as a performer, very powerful performer. Um, but Kang gets defeated by a race of super science evolved ants, right? We don't even need the Avengers. We don't even actually need Ant-Man, right? You know, we got Michael Douglas showing up with so the big bad, no matter how many times you repeat him or bring him back in various other alterations, you made a big stake in the ground, right? Yeah, he got trounced by a bunch of ants. So now you're having to kind of up your ante on your upped ante. Oh, well, that Kang wasn't that strong, but this Kang, you know, he's the real deal, you know, as
we're
opposed.
gonna bring the full picnic this time,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I'm bringing the raid with me this time, you know. So you know, yeah, you do get into that if you go down that road, you have to continuously up your ante. But in that instance, it was like, what did you just do? Like, I'm not sure, you know, like maybe if he had escaped at the end or quote unquote learned from something that he had done, you know, maybe if you know your after credit scene would have been that Kang showing up in the Council of Kangs or whatever they're called, and then I have something to tell you all, you know, like he's suddenly going to share like what he learned so that they all become more powerful because of that, you know, experience. Whatever. I'm not, you know, but
Did you ever get caught in that up in the ante loop with just actually writing Nick Fury? I mean, we're bringing like these issues that we're going to talk about
Oh
today is like
yeah.
Red Skull and bringing
segue,
back
Lilith.
Hydra. Yeah, you know,
Nice,
I've been working on it.
nicely done. Nicely done. I see what you did there.
Yeah, 22-23 is what we're talking today, where yeah, you brought back Baron Strucker.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that was actually that was upping the ante, right? Strucker was meant to be, you know, a big bad and an unexpected big bad and behind the scenes something Fury wasn't going to know about. Um and that was going to take me through a lot of stuff, and it did take me through a lot of stuff, and if I had been better behaved it would have taken me through more stuff. But that wasn't, you know, there was so much I could do with him, I thought, once I reestablished his mandate and his drive and his cleanup on Hydra, right? Because I brought this character back to then have this sort of new supremacist or evolved supremacist attitude. And him looking at what Hydra had become and saying, "You're all a bunch of fools. You know, you've ruined my, you know, my dream, my organization." So he gets the clean house. He gets to bring in some fresh, you know, new evil blood. And then that was a platform I felt you could continuously up the ante on. You could continuously in a consistent way because pockets of what he was creating always laddered up to him, right? So he could be the central figure, or he could be a figure that lieutenants or factions now newly loyal to him and his vision, could give us different ways in, either big action ways or ways that were more intrigue. Um, as long as you kept mixing it up and it wasn't just guys in those weird little smock suits, um, which we were continuously trying to kind of police other Marvel offices, other editorial offices, because we were trying to say Hydra's this now, and I had a couple of compatriots like Greg Wright, who would say, yes, this is the Hydra that we're trying to create, and this is how Hydra should act. But then Hydra would show up in other books just because, I need a bunch of bodies to knock over. Hey, let's get some smocks in here. And then it would be just a bunch of, dumb characters. Yeah, they're cannon fodder. They just run in and they get mowed down. Aren't you a stormtrooper? No, I'm a Hydra agent. And so that that was a little problematic, and it almost felt like you were kind of like working in a pocket universe, But it was fun.
I mean, yeah, it does up the ante, but it's like, is Baron Strucker like Fury's like opposite? Like you have your Batman and Joker, and it's just is Strucker the guy, the arch enemy of Nick Fury?
I mean, to me, he always was, and I mean, when I brought him back from the dead, literally, literally, whatever that means in comics. But the character had been dead. There had been clones or robots or LMDs or type things, but the character was dead, at the bottom of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I was maybe good at in a couple of places was reading the history and finding one little element of things. I was like, what about that? What if you could do something with that? It was like with Last Rites, the Fall of the Kingpin story. It was Frank Miller had written that one line about like, oh, the Kingpin's hidden the Bloody Billy Club somewhere, and that wasn't the whole hook of the story, but it was like, oh, well, let's have him think those are important, in some way, and let's play with those a little bit. And there were aspects of this, of Strucker being killed and Hydra Island sinking and the Death Spore virus rather, being, in the air and everything, in this now blighted, sunken kingdom, that sort of added up in my head and said, well, what if we could use that? What if we could use the power of a virus to revitalize it? Maybe it was like a proto Fall from Grace. I seem to like viruses, right? And but he was a classic villain, and to me, it was like I liked that. I like that feeling of a classic. I am, Wolfgang von Strucker, without having to go full Nazi, right? Definitely Nazi. Not even gonna say Nazi light, but he's not wearing the insignia like the skull or something like that. But it just triggered this way to kind of have this guy come back into his organization and say, man, you guys have let this thing go to seed. Isn't that going to be fun? And then I don't know that he's not an opposite of Fury. Fury has a lot of dark, or at least that Fury had a lot of dark qualities to him, right? He had been ruthless. He had been cruel. Spycraft required doing very underhanded things over the years. And so, but they're done for the right reasons, right? Quote unquote. And I think that he was a powerful character. Nick Fury could be a powerful character. He was everywhere. He could do anything. He could manipulate things. He had secret information on so many people. So a character like Strucker, and that history between them, just felt like something that would be good to give him a foil, because there wasn't one in the book when I took it on full time, right? I had done that storyline earlier, but that was a fill-in, if you will. I knew I was on it. I knew that story would run, but I wasn't going to be able to affect the whole course of the book. But now that I was on it, let's give him something that he could focus on, even though he wouldn't know it was Strucker for a while.
That's interesting. When you said about he wasn't like the full Nazi. He's not wearing the symbol and stuff. Like it's like Grunwald did that with the Skull in the '90s. Like he started wearing like the Armani suits and stuff.
Right.
And I don't want to like downplay like Nazism and stuff, but it's just like, is it just like such a one note, one trick pony thing where it's just like, hey, I hate everyone who's not like me, and it's just
The Nazi aspect
yeah,
of it.
yeah. I mean, just for like your like when you're writing fiction, where it's just like, yeah, well, how do you do this month in and month out? It's just
Well, you could. I mean, God help us. Look at the world around us today. We
yeah.
have people full on embracing Nazism.
I'm not saying it's realistic, but it's just
no. But I mean, look at them. Look at the
Yeah.
people who are doing it in the real world today. They see themselves as very multifaceted people, right? And this is a core aspect. I mean, this is a horrible thing. We're going to step away from this road, quickly. But if you write a character like that, there is a whole host of awfulness to that supremacy fascist mindset, which you can pick and choose from, right? You can go down the racist aspects. And I used the skull a couple of times, and I did that. Like I went right into, to make that, like one is not better than the other, right? But when I played with both of them, right, I played more to the skulls being just, only I stand alone, only my people, only my, things are here. And I played Strucker, more in this supremacist way, like apex predator, sort of thing. Like if the superior, stronger character, is the one who defines success. So if you can meet me at this level, I don't care where you come from so much. That was almost like the charge with the new Hydra, right?
Mm-hmm.
Play at this level, right? Show me your strength and cruelty and, and subjugation, and I will allow you into my fold. But, you break that once and you're crushed like the rest of the insects. And so that gave me ways to focus in on the characters that was not just, I am a Nazi, right? And that's, I'm not embracing them. Like neither of those characters are, like, kind of like, I mean, some villains you slip the skin on, and you're kind of like, yeah, he's fun, like whatever. But neither are fun. But I could get in their heads and unpack it more than just simply saying, it's like a comedian getting up on stage, right? And the first words like are like, I'm playing in Denver. Hey, hey Denver, who's from Denver? Like saying that's, like looking for like cheap applause right at the,
Where's
at
my
the beginning.
Bronco fan?
yeah.
So like, like just playing up the, oh, I'm a villain, I'm a Nazi, thinking that that's going to solve your problems or set yourself up. It's a quick, cheap way in, but you got to do more with it.
Oh yeah, because I mean, you want to be able to like, even if you just read the dialogue, to be able to tell the difference between
Oh yeah,
Strucker and the skull, and then
right.
not just like, wait, who said that? Because they both sound the same. Yeah, you don't want to sound the same.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to do that. And there's a scene in this, I believe. Yeah, I think it's in these issues, maybe just after, but where they get together after Strucker's been resurrected, and there I remember, and I can read it now, and there's a quality between them, and I think there's even a distaste on Strucker's part, for the skull, in a sense that, well, you've been defeated so many times, you are not you. Where's your superiority? Where's your strength? We've known each other forever, but I don't even know if you match my needs at this point.
Oh yeah, I always enjoy that. Yeah, where they're just like bicker among themselves, and
Right.
and it's like Strucker. He puts his money where his mouth is because he treats his kids the same way. He's like, show me you are a worthy heir to this
Right.
throne. Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, I'll just clone myself.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's a
It's any foundation, but that's
a credible
fine.
threat in the Marvel universe.
Right. But there's only one monocle, so it's like, you have to, like, that's how you tell the difference. Like,
I'm surprised that wasn't some kind of secret weapon.
yeah, that's maybe.
It's the monocle to the eye patch,
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
yeah, so yeah, Strucker raises the threat and stuff, but like, is that like a cornerstone of like writing a monthly comic, whether it's like a solo character or like a team? It's like you have to build out that rogues gallery, like. And again, if you're a successful writer, you bring back some of the hits, but you also create some of your
Sure,
own. Yeah.
sure, and that's exactly right. And I think the hits are there. They have a history. Also, as we've talked about before, I was a big James Bond fan, so um, James Bond had Ernst Blofeld, of Spectre, right? Who was his foil across many stories. So in some ways, I looked at Strucker, as a Blofeld like character, and sometimes too much. I think one of the speech he gives after he blows up um, Shield Central, and kills all the agents, and there's a hologram, and we don't know it's Strucker yet, but it's kind of like Hydra's back, I think he actually says, we are special executive for, counterterrorism, revenge, and extortion, which is what Spectre stood for. So, I was just playing my in jokes out, but I did try to, and they were intriguing characters, but I don't think I played with them enough in the right way. But I did start to kind of establish like a set of sub lieutenants for Strucker. There was a Garrot, who was like this weird bald assassin guy with these long fingers he would like use to strangle people, and there was a couple of other characters of that ilk, who started to function in that way. And the thinking would have been to continue to do that. So now you're introducing new villains who are part of the main, right? But you don't always have to have Strucker, right? That's kind of where you went. Or even when you went over to skip over to Daredevil, for a minute, right? The Tree of Knowledge story was, Strucker was pulling the strings behind that. He was testing New York. Can New York rise to the occasion? Who is weak? Who is strong among this? I'm gonna dominate this city and
Good
and
luck.
and create panic, right? But that whole system crash grouping was a sub team of his.
Oh yeah, because as you were saying that, I even yeah, I mean, you were making Hydra a credible threat because even like as early on as Fall of the Kingpin, weren't they trying to get the Kingpin in their pocket? Be like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then be like, you work for us now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oddly enough, Strucker has more history with Daredevil than Daredevil probably knows. Yeah, because that's yeah. I mean, that's one of my favorite lines. I think I ever wrote was when and then I think it was that Garrot character who actually said it. At one point he sort of reveals that Hydra has been manipulating Fisk to a certain extent, and Daredevil's actions had taken Fisk's attention away, enough that he didn't really realize what was happening. So they weren't working together, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of thing behind the scenes. But he says to Fisk as they're blowing up his things across town, his warehouses and all this, you're only a criminal, Mr. Fisk, and we are conquerors, which is just how I felt about like that level. Like Fisk is this powerful criminal force, but what's the next level up from that, right? That's like just an organization that just looks at things at a whole different scale.
And I mean, I remember Fall of the Kingpin. I mean, that was Nick Fury playing chess too, wasn't it? Where it's like basically like, don't look at our computers, because Nick Fury's basically like giving him information to take down the king.
Right.
Like, you know what? If he can mess up stuff for Strucker too,
One less thing
for
to
me,
worry
yeah,
Yeah, everybody's playing everybody in that story. And then the thing that even just gets out of control is I don't think there's Fury says at one point after Daredevil says, like, I've got this, or I'm going to do this my way. He says like fire in the hole, right? Which is kind of like the whole sense that it's like an explosion's coming. So yes, Fury's playing chess or trying to kind of manipulate him there, and not just saying here's the information, let him
What's
think
the fun
he's
in
going to.
that?
Yeah, exactly. And then, but things get out of hand, as it were. Maybe Fury wanted something to happen, but didn't want it to happen to that end. So it was.
I
Uh,
I
lots of-
figured it was plausible deniability. The old Jim Gordon excuse. I don't know. I didn't. He's a man in a mask. I don't know what he was gonna do.
yeah, some of that. But I actually took. I think I took a beating. It's around here somewhere. There's a great book. I think it's called Being Matt Murdock. Have you guys seen this book? And it's this woman who wrote it. It's all like she actually went through like the science of the hypersenses, and it kind of like talks about how certain things could work or might work. It's a really good book. And but anyway, she knocks me around a bit in there for that scene, like reading off a screen, with the fingertips, like as if the phosphors would have the shape of letters and stuff like that. So I told her there's none of that in Black Armor.
We may have to put that on the book club list, Phil.
I already wrote it down. But no, that's what Lilith and I were saying. It seems like they've kind of gotten away even from like him being able to read like regular print with his fingertips, because I don't remember the last time they've ever even mentioned that.
It's all audiobooks now, babes. It's 2020.
Braille and audiobooks.
I guess, yeah. There could be that, but
voice to text.
You'd think, I don't know. I mean, they, I guess there might be a sense of that, right? There's so many accessibility things, right? If you need to read something off a screen, there would be an accessibility setting, right? He could have it played back to him, and he'd know how to access that. Or, but print material, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't factor into certain people's stories.
Oh God, are the comics
Print
even
is dead?
I was saying it's like that's pretty sad if the comics are saying that.
Right. Well, what does he have to read? He just has Marvel Unlimited. What does he need to read anything off the page for? But I don't know. I mean, do people play with the senses as much? I'm having a lot of fun. I know we're circling around on different topics.
Oh no, I mean this
is
the Chichester Chats. I want the thoughts of DG Chichester. Come on.
But I mean, I'm having a lot of fun getting back to playing with the senses. That's one of the things I always really liked.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, again, credit to Netho for the choices he's making in the storytelling in this Black Armor story. Like, some things are just not, I don't want to overwrite. I don't want to make those old sins, but there's just some moments where like, wow, he's got the storytelling so clear here. I can just make it about the little fragments that Matt or Daredevil is sensing in the moment. Like, what does he feel? What is he feeling or smelling or tasting or anything, which is an important part. There's a scene we're doing right now, or he's gotten to, and now I've got to break it out, where his senses are going to get so overwhelmed in this moment that he's only going to be able to depend on the radar sense, and some things are going to be happening that are like he can't interpret, right? If that is just a base level, like, impressions, right? I'm not using it like, oh, I can precisely know the shape of Phil's glasses and the shape of his head, a kind of just larger groupings of space and elements. When weird things happen, you can't know with precision what's going on. So he's got to sort of trust his instincts and take a risk, at certain things to kind of follow up in the scene, which is a lot of fun to do.
And that's why he's a daredevil. But
exactly. There you go.
Oh, I do want to say that I absolutely love the covers for this. They really pull you into the story. Like, it gives you a very retro feel.
Yeah, they did all credit to editorial and I mean, they got what we wanted to do. Everybody was in sync. The covers feel great. Butch,
you can definitely tell. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Butch Geis, I've said this before, Jackson Geis, who was the artist, he was sort of like, I never knew exactly what he was going to do. Right. Because he followed the general plot, but he was doing a little bit of Steranko, a little bit of himself, a little bit of movie poster stuff. Yes. So sometimes you get these beauty shots or choices, that were just like when Strucker shows up and he's just not wearing a shirt. He's just like striding around in like these cut off pants and like, look at me. I'm so like, gloriously you know, that was part of like, because I didn't write it that way. I wrote it like, you know, Strucker shows up in a new uniform and, you know, and stuff. And instead he's got him just like, you know, looking like Willem Dafoe in Streets of Fire. Like, just look how glorious I am. I mean, that just inspires you to write things in a different way. And, but I think all that particular set of issues you picked out felt so much like all cylinders were kind of firing, you know, in terms of, you know, we knew what we want. I knew what I wanted to do. You know, setting up the you know, the Hydra surrogates who go and sacrifice themselves to bring the island, you know, to reactivate the virus, you know, in the sunken island, to resurrect, you know, Strucker. Strucker's starting to set things up with the Skull and his old Confederates, and you know, I guess I had to be careful. I didn't just, you know, make it, you know, Wolfgang von Strucker, agent of Hydra, you know, make sure Fury was still in the story, because I was having a lot of fun with Strucker, but I knew that was in service, you know, to the hero of the book, right? It's an obvious thing. Heroes are only ever as strong as their villains, right?
Mhm.
You give somebody a weak villain, and you know, what do you got? You don't got much. But
That's also the beauty of the setup for this story. Like, I didn't mind. Just I was like, oh yeah, we should probably get to Nick. Nah, none of that. It was really interesting getting to that point where we're gonna see where Nick slots in. So I was
right,
like,
right.
and that's the sign of a good writer, where the setup you're just like, oh, the exposition isn't hitting me in the head like an anvil. That's nice. That's a nice
Yeah,
change
I
of
mean,
pace.
no, I mean, could I've handled that with 3 panels? Like, you know, he shows up and it's like, where did
What's
you,
the
you know,
fun in that?
yeah, well, right. It's like
And plus,
somehow
he'd been gone for so long too. I think it justified it
yeah,
personally.
no, thank you. I mean, you know, we all cringe at the somehow Palpatine returned, you know, moments, right? It's kind of, but you also thank God for them because you get to mock them, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I've read enough
Palpatine did
Chichester.
nothing wrong.
Oh, that's at Lilith Hellfire. Yeah, no, I've read enough Chichester. I'm like, oh yeah, something's simmering on the stove. You know, Dan's cooking something up, and just even though I know kind of, you know, what's coming, especially in that Daredevil stuff, and no, I mean, like Lil said, every step was justified, and again, it's not like Strucker died 5 minutes ago and you brought him back. He'd been gone for a while, so.
Yeah, and why hadn't, you know, people brought him back? And I, you know, there was a little bit of a political play there too, not
Mm.
full on, but I will. I mean, I like Strucker. I thought Strucker would be a good thing to play with, but I was also being a little um, like people within the Marvel editorial group who were big fans of you know, classic characters and classic situations and stuff like that. And I'm thinking specifically of Ralph Macchio, you know, who would be my editor on Daredevil. And I knew Ralph liked my stuff, you know, from what he'd read on some other things. But this was before I was on Daredevil, remember? You know, I kind of thought to myself, you know what, if I bring back some classic characters and do justice to them, it will get me some cred with people in editorial, right? It'll like make them look at what I'm doing and think more favorably of me and what I might do on their books as well. So, you know, in that instance, I knew Ralph was a fan of Fury. I knew Ralph was a fan of Strucker. And so, you know, that wasn't the only reason to do it. Oh, I'm playing just a Ralph Macchio. But, you know, Ralph was influential. Ralph was well positioned. And that you could do worse than do right by Ralph. So that was, you know, part of like, oh, let's see what I can do here. And I think that's also part of why he gave me, you know, the option to pitch Daredevil.
Hmm.
Very cool.
I mean, it works. I mean, put it aside. Oh, it's their favorite character. You know, it's so and so's favorite character. I mean, you tell a good story. It's going to speak to everyone. You know, the
Sure,
editors, the audience,
sure,
and
sure.
again, they're going to sit up and take notice if they're like, oh, hey, you know, everybody reading this book seems to like what Dan's doing over there. Yeah, let's throw him some more bones. Yeah.
But you have to, you know, you are playing your audience a little bit in the sense that, you know, a lot of the the work I did at Epic, right? The Shadowline books, which is the set of 3 books, Dr. George and Dr. George, St. George, Dr. Zero, and Powerline. I'll tell you a funny Dr. Zero story, but more recently, but I think those books were a little rocky at the start, as Margaret Clark, who I was writing with, and myself kind of got our groove on and learned about these new characters in this new universe. But by the issue 2 and kind of on, I think there's a lot of really great storytelling in those issues, and that's a big story, right? We did like 8, 9 issues of the regular books, and then we did this big Critical Mass story that wrapped it all up. But it was a huge mega series. But nobody in regular Marvel probably looked at those books. So that good storytelling there didn't matter until I did a good story with a Baron von Strucker. So it's like, well, I used to recommend to up and coming artists or writers, and I'd meet them at conventions, and they would be like, oh, I really want to work at, on the Hulk or something like that. You're starting out, you might not jump right in there. But if you do want to work on the Hulk, right, and you're showing me all your Thor pages or all your Spider-Man pages, and these are pretty good, but you know what the Hulk editor is going to look at? Hulk pages, right? They should be able to interpret anything, but by and large, the editor of a certain character is going to respond better if you go in and pitch, not necessarily to pitch, I should be your new Hulk artist, but show them something that they're already aligned with, and take the weekend, take a couple weeks, do some Hulk samples, and that's going to make whoever's editing Hulk like nod their head better.
To kind of associate you with that character, be like, oh yeah, I saw him. He fed me some Hulk pages. Yeah, this Hulk, the new Hulk book. Yeah,
right. Or just just to be able to appreciate your abilities better. When somebody spends all their day, every week of every day, evaluating Hulk stories from the professionals who are doing it, right? They're in the zone, right? This is the way the Hulk moves. This is the way it'd be more exciting. This is the way so-and-so speaks. So they look at your stuff and it's a Spider-Man story. You're kind of one step removed from what they know, but you put them in the Hulk groove. Even if they're not going to hire you for the Hulk, they could say right away, wow, you really know how to tell a good story. You know what? I'm going to recommend you to so-and-so, right? I know he or she is looking for something, and I can tell right away you've got that going on because you're in the realm of my my understanding and my best knowledge.
Okay, I just want to bring up one last thing before we let you go. See, I thought that they maybe came to you to ask to bring back
Strucker,
because we're in that 50 years of Captain America. So like I thought, or maybe that was just the timing and everything just came together.
Yeah, it was the timing. I think once I got the assignment to do the book itself, coming off the short run I'd done and the gap of a few issues, and then kind of, no, you're the writer. It was probably in my head, hoping that would happen, and like knowing I'd want to do a big bad, and Strucker was in my mind for all the reasons we've talked about. But I think I led that charge and figured out the conceit. There was no, I was generally spared a lot of edicts and things, you have to do this or you have to align with that for most of the part of the things I kind of worked on. So it was my choice to do it, and happy it played out that way.
I mean, especially at that point, were there a lot of preconceived notions of Nick Fury from people, or were they just like, yeah, as long as you don't go like too far off the reservation, you can pretty much, do what you want with this character?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and there was, I think that was exactly right. Preconceived notions, and it's the sort of thing, just like the Hydra characters. If he showed up in another book and somebody wasn't policing it, they were going to do whatever they wanted, which was unfortunate. It'd be nicer if there was a stricter policing on some of these characters, to sort of say, no, if you're going to use it, you got to be consistent with what we're doing, because we're trying to build something that's good for the entire, Marvel universe. But we've talked before about how I use this as my my chance to write a James Bond movie, and, you know, and play out some Tom Clancy stuff and whatever else in that zone. So I got to do some quote unquote fun espionage and hard espionage, and some, you know, super spy, you know, aspects. So I kind of felt across the gamut of the Shield Nick Fury experience. You know, I got to play with a little bit of all of them.
Oh, that's still what we have to do sometime, Lilith. Just get Dan, if we can get Dan twice in 1 month, do a James Bond episode.
Oh yeah, we were thinking about that.
Do you guys do a James Bond podcast?
No, but we were just saying we might have to do one episode where we have James Bond. Yes.
Yeah, Bond is yeah,
that's a crazy universe for sure.
Yeah, I was such a super fan for the longest time, and you know, you just can only occupy your neurons with so many things. I don't.
Now it's all 3D printing.
Yeah, now it's not. Somebody sent me a video of some woman who looks like she used the same model I did, and it was just, you know, she just put me to shame. You know, like with that Daredevil cowl, like she just. I mean, she had, like, I don't know, vacuum form fabricators and all this other kind of stuff. She really clearly knew exactly what she was doing. I think she got to print it out in one piece and not have to assemble it like I did. But
you'll get there.
You get there, yeah. And the thing was, I had it at Terrificon. I think I'm gonna, if I can figure out a way to pack it for Austin for GalaxyCon, you know, I want to bring it as well, because it's a nice little prop to sort of occupy the table. But I thought more people would like respond to it. You know, it's there, it's sitting on the table. They've got like this cool little Daredevil stand that it sits on, and I thought more people would like at least acknowledge it. But there were really only 2 people who even really noted it and asked to sort of wear it. Like, one was a little kid, and you know, the other was James Enstall, who runs a podcast, radio show called, you know, Geek to Me Radio, but I just sort of thought more people would say, "Oh, what is that?" or "Can I try that on?" But who knows? Maybe in Austin.
That'd be me. Yes, I'd be trying on. But yeah, again, yeah. Let's shout that out. Yeah, Austin, Labor Day weekend.
Yes. If you're insane enough to travel on Labor Day weekend, which I did not realize it was Labor Day weekend when I said sure. I will be in Austin at GalaxyCon, which I believe is at the Austin Convention Center. Labor Day weekend, so September 1, 2, and 3. So please drop in. There are long days. I believe it goes from like till 8 o'clock or something, at least Friday and Saturday. So plenty of time to come by and say hi and see some Daredevil Black Armor art before anybody else sees it, and talk and chat and all that good stuff.
And then, like I said, I guess we have our homework. Well, homework for next time, but yes, we'll go live next episode. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool.
If you have any questions, you can listen to Dan explain the Kickstarter live.
And in the meantime, if folks want to go to axlesinfernal.com, AXLESINFERNAL, I did it right.com. That's the preview site. That's not the Kickstarter site, but you get a little flavor of what this book is about. And there's also a sign up email list if you want to put your name on there and you want to be among the first to know when the Kickstarter is ready to kind of go. But you'll learn much more about that on our next Chichester Chats. Sounds like a promo.
All right, I'll put yeah, well, it's better be. Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes. Again, just follow this man on social media. I mean, you'll see that previews for Axles Infernal, Daredevil Black Armor.
Yep.
Teasing that script every time.
More than the script will be teased soon. October 22nd, because the book comes out November 22nd. So October 22nd, you can expect a deluge of Black Armor stuff.
All right. So, and the newsletter. Should we
newsletter? Please check out the newsletter, storymaze.substack.com. I think that's enough promos. Don't go beyond 3. That's socially accepted. Sort of behavior. Don't overstay your welcome or over promote your whatevers. But thank you guys as always. This is fun. This one kind of went a little bit further afield than poor Nick Fury, but I think we covered some interesting ground.
Again, I just always like to get in the head of DG Chichester. Plus, you have a lot more. You have so much going on. It's like let's
yeah. It's you know, if it better do it. I figured I could either spread it out over the last, you know, 20 odd years, or just cram it, you know, as much as possible in the next 3 to 5 months. You know.
All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy your weekend. I hope it's fabulous. Hope the weather holds up wherever you guys are at, and have a good time.
Right back at you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you,
Take
sir.
care. Bye.